can still remember the night she told me, down to the sound of the glass she kept spinning between her fingers. It was the kind of night that should have been ordinary, a late Friday after work, the city humming with weekend chatter. I had stopped at a small bar on 9th and Maple, a quiet place with low jazz music and dim lights that made everything feel far away. I never expected to find her there. Her name was Julia. We worked in the same office, different departments, barely more than casual hellos and polite smiles in the hallway. She wasn't someone I knew well enough to call a friend, but not a stranger either. She had the kind of face that looked peaceful, composed, almost elegant. People liked her instantly. When she got engaged, everyone was thrilled for her. I remember that day at the office when she came in with a diamond ring, smiling shyly while everyone gathered around. She blushed when people asked about her fiancé, told us he was kind, hardworking, dependable. The kind of man, she said, that made her feel safe. There was something about the word safe that stuck in my head. It wasn't the word people usually used when they were in love. When I saw her that night at the bar, she looked nothing like the woman from that office celebration. Her hair was undone, her lipstick faded, her ringless hand clutching a drink. I called her name softly, half expecting her to pretend not to see me, but she looked up, smiled weakly, and waved me over. The moment I sat down, I knew something was wrong. There was no small talk, no "how was your week?" Instead, she stared at the glass for a long time before whispering, "I don't love him." The words hung there between us like cigarette smoke, heavy, slow, impossible to ignore. At first, I didn't know how to respond. I asked her what she meant, and she laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. "I'm marrying a man I don't love," she said, still spinning the glass, "and I don't know how to stop." She told me everything that night, about how her relationship with her fiancé had begun, not out of passion, but out of exhaustion. "I was talking to his friend before him," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I really liked that friend. I thought something real was starting, but then he ghosted me, stopped answering my messages. No explanation, nothing, just gone." That silence had eaten at her. She had waited for him to come back, but he never did. And when her now fiancé began to show interest, she was still aching, still trying to patch over the emptiness that man had left behind. "I told myself maybe I could love him," she said. "That love could grow." But it didn't. Her fiancé, Daniel, adored her. He bought her flowers every week, wrote her notes, planned their future with unshakable excitement. "He deserves someone who looks at him the way he looks at me," she said, her eyes glistening. "But I can't force it. I don't feel it. Every time he says he loves me, I feel wrong, like I'm lying just by standing there." She said she thought about breaking off the engagement dozens of times, but every time she pictured doing it, she saw her parents' disappointment, her friends' confusion, the whispers at work. "Everyone thinks I'm lucky," she said softly. "Lucky to have someone so devoted. But they don't know that every time he touches my hand, I feel like I'm betraying both of us." I remember the sound of her voice then. It wasn't dramatic or self-pitying. It was hollow, stripped bare. The sound of someone who had already lost something she couldn't name. I told her she didn't have to go through with it, that she could walk away, even now, that no one would blame her for choosing herself. But she shook her head and whispered, "I can't. I'm tired of being alone." That was the real reason. Not love, not loyalty, fear. She told me that loneliness had been her constant shadow. After a bad breakup years earlier, she had spent nights in silence, scrolling through photos of people with partners, with families, with someone to come home to. She said she used to sit on her bed and imagine what it would be like to have someone who stayed, no matter what. "Daniel stays," she said. "He always stays. I can't throw that away just because my heart won't cooperate." We sat there for hours that night. She cried quietly near the end, her voice trembling as she admitted, "I don't know if I'll ever know what real love feels like anymore. Maybe this is what everyone does. Maybe everyone just settles." A few months later, she got married. The wedding photos made their way around the office, her in a lace gown, his arm around her, both of them smiling. To anyone else, it looked perfect. But I could see it, the same distant glaze in her eyes that I'd seen at the bar, that haunting expression of someone performing happiness. After the honeymoon, she returned to work wearing a new last name and the same quiet sadness. When people asked how married life was, she'd smile and say, "It's good." Always those two words. Always that small, strained smile. Over time, the spark in her faded. She stopped talking about Daniel altogether. No more anniversary posts, no photos, no mention of him in conversations. She became quieter, more withdrawn. Then one day, about 3 years after the wedding, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked different. Older, not in years, but in spirit. There was a heaviness in her expression, a tiredness that clung to her like fog. We chatted for a bit, small talk, polite smiles, and then she said it. "You were right." I asked her what she meant. She looked down at her shopping basket, then back at me with a sad smile. About not marrying him, about not doing it just because I was scared. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "He's not a bad man, he's never hurt me, but it feels like we're roommates now. I can't remember the last time we looked at each other and really saw one another." She told me she sometimes lies awake at night, staring at the ceiling beside a man she doesn't love, wondering what her life might have been if she'd been braver. "I thought being alone was the worst thing that could happen," she said. "But I was wrong. Being with someone you don't love, it's lonelier." That night stayed with me long after we said goodbye. I thought about how many people live like her, smiling for photos, saying "I'm fine" while dying inside. People who mistake security for happiness, companionship for connection. Loneliness is powerful. It makes us compromise, makes us settle, makes us believe that half love is better than no love. But it's not. It eats away slowly, turning comfort into suffocation, turning affection into obligation. Sometimes I wish I had said more to her that night at the bar. Maybe if I had been stronger, maybe if I had begged her to stop the wedding, she would have listened. But I didn't. I told myself it wasn't my place. I told myself people have to make their own mistakes. And maybe that's true. But still, every time I think of her, I think of how quietly people ruin their own lives. Not with malice, not with recklessness, but with fear. Fear of being unloved. Fear of being alone. And that's the tragedy of Julia's story. Not that she married the wrong man, but that she silenced the right part of herself. The part that still wanted to believe in love. I saw her one last time, years later, sitting alone in a cafe. She was reading a book, sipping coffee, wedding ring still on. She looked peaceful but not happy, more like someone who had learned to live with emptiness. I didn't go over. I didn't interrupt. Some silences are too fragile to break. As I walked away, I realized something I'd never forgotten since. We think love is about finding someone to stay. But real love is about finding someone who makes you want to stay. And no wedding ring in the world can replace that.